tense and really tight, the tissue binds, it's not going to let go, become malleable, right? So we need to soften. So we start with parasympathetic breathing, which is just diaphragmatic breathing, 360-degree expansion and creating internal pressure. So we don't push the stomach out, we just breathe into our center. We imagine the diaphragm pulling down and the whole body pressurizing and expanding through that, as opposed to pushing the stomach out on a belly breath, right? Then we slow our exhales and we try to pause after the exhale and just kind of let our biochemistry balance, let the CO2 build up a little bit, increase our CO2 levels. A lot of people are in respiratory alkalosis, which is just too much oxygen because they're in that stressed out state where they're just breathing in too much and they're not breathing out enough and being still enough, which lowers their CO2 levels and there's too much oxygen. So there decreases the efficiency of their oxygen exchange, right? So we soften the body through parasympathetic breathing, we slow our exhales. This would happen for about 5 minutes. After that, no matter if I'm going for the pinky toe or if I'm going for the shoulder, I'm going to activate zone 1. Neurologically, I'm going to hit these trigger points that create neuromuscular connection to our center, and that starts with the diaphragm. So I would create an inverted Y here and stimulate from here to here. Imagine the rib cage in the ridge line of where the ribs end. And a lot of this in the nerves in this that we're trying to stimulate and create the connection to are at the ridge line of the muscles and bones. So I get right into here at the rib cage and you can feel a little bit of tension here, and you're going to feel some of these areas are super sensitive, and what we're trying to do is stimulate that nerve and then send the signal through the breath that we can relax and change that experience, right? Change the body's current state, the nervous system state. And what we're doing, essentially the goal is to get the rib cage and get the diaphragm firing better. So we would stimulate nerves here on the inverted Y, coming up and down. And then we would work into psoas, trying to get hip flexion connection the way it should properly happen. Because if my psoas is off, I'm going to compensate through quad, tibialis, even jaw. Something else is going to be the primary driver when I'm picking my knee up and forward, which will compromise my gait cycle. So we basically dig into these activation and trigger points, and you can see there's probably a little bit of discomfort there, right? And I'm just finding that tension and seeking that tension. And when I get there, I just kind of rub it, or even just ISO it and ask her to slow her exhale and try to relax that area while I'm there, right? Spend about 15 seconds, 30 seconds. I personally start at the top of the hip and I work towards the belly button, which right here is going to be the most tense. And you can probably see right there is where we start to get a little tense, and then she's just going to breathe in that nice 360-degree expansion, slowly exhale, pause at the bottom, and you can feel like a little twitch in there, right? So I would get both psoas firing, right and left, and kind of work into this area. It all sounds very intricate and complex, but the truth is the application of it and the drills are simple. So yeah, there's complexity to the system, but when you utilize it and you understand it and just apply it, it's not that intricate, it's not that hard. The glutes are actually behind the head. So we've done the diaphragm, we've done the psoas, and then we work behind the head here in order to create better hip extension and better neuromuscular connection to the glute. She's just going to relax the breath, and she definitely feels a lot of tension up in this area. And I'm going to work my way around the ridge line of the skull. And typically I would spend probably 3 minutes here, as opposed to about 30 seconds. And then I get up underneath the jaw, and imagine pulling the jaw forward off the body, making it really intense here, not very comfortable. But we're going to send that signal through the breath to relax it. Good. Okay. Step 1, calm the mind, create the neuromuscular connection. Nervous system approach first. Now we get into the fascia. So we get into the resistance stretching, the contracted stretching. She's going to utilize the neuromuscular connection she just created with the psoas being able to activate, to engage, and resist as I arcingly and eccentrically overpower her engagement to break up the tissue. Right, so we already did her right leg earlier as a demonstration. So now I'm going to start at zone 1 and I'm going to do the left leg. So she's gonna drive hip flex, she's gonna bend this knee, and I'm just gonna warm it up with about 4 reps here, so you can drive your knee towards your head. And she's really gonna focus on just kind of driving through her core, trying to get that engagement through her center. Relax it, come back out, and drive towards you. So this is the concentric portion of the rep, right? This is the contraction. Drive towards you. You can see a little bit of disconnection. Drive towards you. And right now I'm just trying to get a little burn there. Get some blood pumping there. Get some connection to the area, essentially warm it up. And then I have her relax. I have her drive the knee into my hand at about a 90-degree joint angle, because that's where we really find max tension. Anything deeper is less tension. Anything further away, I'm not going to be as strong. So really about 90 degrees here, I drive that knee into the hand. And I'm not going to start until she can really, yeah, there's the engagement we want. And we're going to try to find that core and that psoas. And now in an arcing motion, I'm just going to overpower her. She's going to stay relaxed. She's going to keep engaged through that center, keep that engagement. There it is, there it is. And you'll start to, probably not on the first rep, you'll start to feel a burn in a deeper area that you really haven't. At first, you're going to feel it in the quad, you're going to feel it in the tensor, and all the areas that kind of compensate to drive that hip flexion. But over time, you're going to get a burn in the core and the deep psoas that's really hard to feel. You start to feel kind of new areas open up. The psoas itself is the hardest to feel in the entire body. I'm sure all the practitioners in here know the psoas and know how hard it is to really establish it or even dig into it or get to it or feel it firing. That's the trickiest part. So this is the most subtle stretch, the least burn. Okay, drive towards you. Now, with Jenny here, she could tell me what the, if she had an issue, what the issue would be. But typically I'm working hip flexion right now, drive towards you. And so I'm activating zone 1 on hip flexion, and you can see my hand is at the bottom of her foot, and that's because her hamstring is going to be engaged in this as well. Because typically, when we drive hip flexion, the hamstring shortens. Drive the knee, and when we drive hip extension, the hamstring lengthens. So right there, pause. Now engage a little bit harder, a little bit more. Right there, keep it. And you should start to feel a little bit in the center. Probably going to feel high hip up in here. Go one more on this and then we'll just move on for the demo. Drive towards you. Good. R. So you can see, oh, you hear that?
What was that?
Yeah, right? Okay, so you get some cracks and you get some unique pops. I call them fascia pops. And they feel phenomenal. Typically with this stretching, it's not like a normal stretch where you just feel kind of loose after it. You feel sore. You feel a little restless like a workout. The next day you have the deepest and best soreness you've ever felt, and your body works differently. You can just feel it function much better. Okay, so like I said, we were working hip flexion there, and so when I drive hip flexion, especially, it's all based around the gait cycle and how we move, typically my hamstring shortens. This is one thing that I think is compromised in the gym a lot. People drive hip extension and then contract the hamstring when the hamstring really lengthens on hip extension, right? So if I hit the ground and I drive my leg, we want that leg to straighten in a healthy sprint. We want to get full hip extension, which is full length of the hamstring, not contraction. So if I'm driving my glute back, it's not often that I'm going to pull my hamstring to my glute. It's typically once I start to bring my knee back in hip flexion that I get the heel to come towards the butt and contract the hamstring, which is happening after I get length here. So like a machine that drives down and then curls doesn't make a ton of sense to me. It's more lengthen and then release. Psoas and hamstring work together, glutes and quads work together. So the point of that whole spiel, we just did her hip flexion with her psoas, so now we go straight to the hamstring because it's hamstring and psoas. Okay, so you can drive your knee down, drive your foot down and just feel engagement. This time I'm going to really ask her to engage through the glute because she's driving hip extension. This will lengthen the tissue through the whole posterior, but we're going to really just hold this iso. She's pulling my hand to the floor. Yeah. And then she's finding that glute. We did it earlier. She's doing a good job trying not to rotate her pelvis or let this hip climb up because the alignment of your joints is going to affect their ability to activate, okay? So she's driving here, now I'm going to do an arcing motion. You feel hamstring already? Nice, see, so that's a healthy rep right there. She's doing a good job.
So she's pushing back?
She's resisting me,
Gotcha.
yeah, as if she doesn't want my hands to move her foot.
So you're putting her through that eccentric range and...
It's all eccentrics and then it's relax. Break tissue, relax.
Cool.
Lengthen, relax. Yep. And that's why it's tiger stretching. Push down, engage. Now I'm going to do an arcing eccentric. And I tell you, it feels nothing like a normal stretch. And there's nothing in the gym that can replicate it because I can pinpoint this. If I knew she had issues in her lateral hamstring and the outer portion of her leg, and I knew that there was either scar tissue or dense fascia there, I would come over here and just change angles. Push down, little internal rotation on your femur because we're going to go into hip flexion. Push the heel to the, yeah. And now I'm going to come up like this. And you're going to feel the outer portion of the hamstring and the glute. Yeah, so you can pinpoint the tissue and literally change anything. Right, so I could dive into this concept into the foot and ankle complex if I needed to get into an area of the calf, right? Just like that, push down. And at this point, she's been engaging and working pretty hard. So she's gonna feel a deep, deep burn on a level that I can't figure out how to do in the gym. Like the deepest of burns, right? And you can see, you can see the shake there is what we want. And you can feel, from my standpoint, the tissue breaking and when it's a good, healthy rep. Push. This one's much better than the last one, right? You feel the connection?
Seems we're going to have to wrap it up pretty quick.
Yep. This will be the last rep.
Thanks, bud. This is awesome, though.
And then we get that arcing motion up, and she's probably burning up in that whole glute hamstring.
So you could probably measure her hamstring flexibility before and after this. I guarantee it'd be a lot greater than static
Yes.
stretching.
Yes, we measure hip flexion
Yeah,
and then hip extension. She goes on her stomach.
nice.
The last step in this would be joint glides,
Oh, nice.
passive stretching, and alignment and activation drills.
I love how you
So
just,
we get so
it's so well rounded. You guys, you're hitting all, you're checking all the boxes.
one universal system.
Heck
We'll
yeah,
lie down real
that's
quick.
awesome,
So the
man.
joint glide would be like, something like this, where I would just kind of focus on separating the joint,
After it's
creating
nice
some
and
space
warm.
there. Yep.
Nice.
Or I would take her into a passive stretch after that fascia's free, and kind of go into something like this. Yeah, right. So this is typical stretching, and that's step 3 of the system. So
That's
I do a
awesome.
lot of conventional assisted stretching. I just do the other stuff
Cool.
as the primary before.
So how do people find you?
So I got some information in here. I got business cards. I got an Instagram, which is 3_eyed_tiger. And then I have an Instagram called @tiger_transformation, which is the system. I also have a website, www.the3eyedtiger.com.
All right. Thank you.